What's going on with her?
The following video is mostly intended for humor. I nitpick, make jokes, and generally just have fun pointing out things that don't quite add up. That said, I may make a few actually valid points along the way. I'll leave it to you to decide which is which. Oh, and spoilers! Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes, I talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about The Little Mermaid, the 2023 Disney live-action children's movie remake of a 1989 animated children's classic, which in turn was based on an 1837 short children's story by Hans Christian Andersen, because if there's one thing the internet really needs right now, is yet another grown-ass man complaining about something that was never intended for him to begin with. So how this works is, I'm going to go through the movie and point out all the questionable things that I can find in The Little Mermaid. So the movie starts off with a quote from HCA which reads, "But a mermaid has no tears, and therefore she suffers so much more." Which is actually true, by the way. I mean, true for humans. I don't know about mermaids, but for people, not crying can actually lead to more stress. This movie ain't even on for 2 minutes and it's already got me questioning how I view masculinity in a world that often sees crying or any kind of emotional expression as a sign of weakness. This is supposed to be a kids movie, right? Anyway, we then get shown some seamen trying to ejaculate their spears onto what they think is a mermaid riding bareback in the ocean. But turns out it was a dolphin. The thing is though, Eric presumably saw it was a dolphin from up top, swung down and told them off for trying to kill a dolphin. But why? That could be tonight's dinner. Granted, dolphin meat is actually very unhealthy for people because of the high mercury levels, but this is, I'm guessing, sometime around 1837. They wouldn't have known that then. Also, speaking of animals, it seems like a very bad idea to bring a pet dog aboard a ship like this. Plus, Max wasn't even in the Hans Christian Andersen story. However, during this time it was common for people to bring their dogs to sea with them, so this actually makes sense.
My daughters on the 7 seas.
Wait, all of them are his daughters? All of them? Anyway, what are these mermaids putting in their hair? Because there's gotta be a big market for hair products that don't wash out even at the bottom of the ocean. Also, speaking of the bottom of the ocean, Sebastian is a Jamaican red crab. Sebastian died in this scene. So now we're introduced to the star of the show, Ariel. And oh yeah, I remember now. When this movie was being released, there was a big controversy because some people thought that a black mermaid is scientifically inaccurate. And to be fair, they were right, because scientifically speaking, mermaids don't actually exist, and neither do talking animals, by the way. Well, not unless you're Dr. Dolittle or something. But if we are talking science, then I think the more pressing question is, where do mermaids excrete ammonia? Fish have gills for that. Mermaids do not. So is it coming out of their mouths or nose, which by the way would be extremely painful, or are they peeing it out? That would seem to make the most sense, but since the top half is human, that would have a much slower digestive rate than a fish, which means that ammonia is going to build up to very deadly levels very quickly, and maybe that's what happened to the mermaids. Anyway, Ariel asks Flounder if he's getting cold fins, to which he replies no. But this seems like an odd expression for sea dwellers because it's always cold there. So Ariel knew there were sharks at this level of the ocean and still thought it was a good idea to venture out there without telling anyone. First of all, that's pretty careless. And B, Flounder already told her he can't swim that fast, so send him home. Putting your own life in danger is stupid. Putting someone else's life in danger is just pathetic. Well, I hope you've learned your lesson, young lady. I hope you've learned your lesson, middle-aged or really old or should be already dead fish. Is Flounder panting? Underwater? By the way, Flounder isn't a flounder, more likely a Sergeant Major damselfish. They're on the menu of at least 6 different predators, so dude really shouldn't be swimming around with Ariel and her cockamamie ideas. What's interesting though, is that Sergeant Majors do eat crabs, but I think Sebastian might be a bit too big for Flounder. That said, Sebastian's probably got at least 639 kids somewhere, so he best keep them hidden throughout this whole movie.
Come back, Flounder, it's just Scuttle.
Scuttle just murdered one of Flounder's cousins right in front of him. Honestly, Flounder might need therapy at this point, not even 12 minutes into the film, and how much have they traumatized him already? Nah, Flounder deserves better. Also, Scuttle in this version is a northern gannet. They're really good at diving for food, but they can't breathe underwater, so Scuttle died in this scene.
But as long as you live in my ocean, you'll obey my rules.
you gotta know how abusive that is, because different oceans have different living conditions, so he's basically saying, do as I say or go die somewhere. But true say though, I feel like this movie needs a backstory. Like, why is Ariel so obsessed with humans? Why is King Triton so obsessed with humans? And why is Disney so obsessed with killing their protagonists' mothers? We need answers. Also, it's kind of interesting and maybe a little ironic that Anton Chigurh was so obsessed with feet, and now he doesn't have any.
How a world that makes such wonderful things could be so bad.
Oh mate, if that's what you think, this is not gonna end well for you, I'm sorry. Here's the thing about this scene. This is a ship with royalty on board, so even during a party there would be at least one person looking out for storms and other dangers, so somebody's getting fired. Matter of fact, this guy should have been looking out for storms and other dangers, so if he ain't dead, fire him. Also, Ariel rescues Eric and falls in love with him right away, which seems odd to me. I mean, sure, it's nowhere near as unhinged as that guy who made out with a random dead chick he found in the woods, but still, you know nothing about him other than he's not a very strong swimmer. And if that's all it took, then how come she didn't fall in love with Max? She had to help him out too. Why isn't this a love story between a mermaid and a dog?
The seaweed is always greener in somebody else's lake.
Seaweed doesn't grow in lakes. I mean, it's literally called seaweed.
How many shipwrecks have there been in our waters this year, Prime Minister?
6.
Do these humans have any idea how much damage their shipwrecks do?
I don't think they intended to have a shipwreck.
They've had 6 this year. It's either deliberate or they're stupid. Either way, how down bad do you have to be to try and defend this?
They killed your mother.
I know.
Okay, now we know why King Triton hates humans because they killed his wife. And we know why Ariel is so obsessed with humans because she never really liked her own mother to begin with. Alright, I'm being a little facetious. And to be fair, Ariel is right. Just because one person did a bad thing doesn't mean everyone who happens to be in the same group are all bad as well. That is true. Here's the thing though, Ariel has very little to go on regarding the goodness of humans. They killed her mother, pollutes her home, eats her friends, shoots explosions into the sky, can't swim. I mean, she is going on the most extreme levels of hope that some of them might be good. And again, she ain't wrong. But this doesn't explain her obsession. How is her name Ariel and she's still missing all the signals? So I know this is supposed to make Ursula seem more scary or whatever, but honestly, this just screams lazy to me. I mean, that's gonna have been there for at least a few years to maybe 100 years. You couldn't just sweep her under the seabed or something? Nah, that's just lazy. Anyway, they need to explain Ursula's relation to Triton, because they're saying they're siblings. I ain't trying to be rude or nothing, but you know what I mean? And if all Ursula did was stir up some trouble between humans and mermaids, is that really a reason to banish her? Humans have done so much damage, maybe a little payback is in order. I'm just saying, as bad as Ursula is, I ain't too convinced this is her fault. I'm thinking Big Brother and his big ego played a big part in this. So what's interesting about this is, Ariel didn't actually agree to Ursula's deal. She said no, was even about to swim away, but when Ursula told her to sing, she did. So although she technically still went along with it, she didn't verbally agree. And body language can often be misinterpreted, so I'm not sure this would hold up in court. Also, if Ursula wants Ariel to fail so she can take her soul, why take away her voice? Right now, Ariel is a pretty girl that doesn't talk. Of course Eric's gonna fall in love with her. Are you dumb? This might seem trivial, but Sergeant Majors really don't last long out of water, so Sebastian pushing him back in the ocean literally just saved his life. I just hope Flounder doesn't eat any more of Sebastian's kids. Anyway, speaking of Sebastian, I read that some people hated the accent because it was too generic rather than being from a specific region, but actually, the generic accent makes sense. Sebastian is a Jamaican red crab, which despite the name, are not only from Jamaican seas. They're found all over the Caribbean and even some places further out. So generic accent, which is more representative of all the regions in which they live, that tracks.
There you go. Smells nice, doesn't it?
Here's the thing, back in the 1800s, soap was made with animal fats, vegetable fats, and lye. Lye being poisonous for humans to consume. Now I'm gonna assume that was a properly made bar of soap, which would mean there was no lye left over, so biting into it most likely won't kill her, but can still possibly make her ill. However, the more pressing matter is that Ariel had zero reaction to the way the soap tasted. So is Ariel just eating soap on the regular? Also, a black woman woman should already know not to be grabbing another black woman's hair. 1800s or not, no excuse for that. Come on now. So not only do humans leave their trash in the ocean, they steal things from the ocean too, and don't even know what they're taking. And this is the guy Ariel is willing to go against her family for? Also, how did Ariel know to drop the rock to break it? Gravity works different in the ocean, so shouldn't her first thought be to headbutt it or something? I'm starting to think Ariel's been to the surface more times than we're led to believe. Interesting. So even in 1837, women couldn't drive and ran through markets taking stuff while the man pays for everything. Also, when the florist offered Ariel the tropical flower and Ariel ate it, you really shouldn't eat flowers. Most are not edible, some are even poisonous, and since Ariel is a human now, along with eating the soap earlier, she's probably gonna be dead before the end of this film.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow, chicka.
Hold up, did Scuttle just hum the universal porno music in a kids movie? Listen, yeah, they're only supposed to kiss. Nobody said nothing about offloading the cargo. You know what I mean? Also, Eric just stole that boat. I don't care that he's a prince. Matter of fact, that just makes it worse. Also, between Ursula's contract and this almost kiss, there's definitely an underlying message about consent. Because with Ursula, Ariel didn't say yes, and now she cannot say yes. And it doesn't help that Ariel's friends are all but encouraging Eric to ignore her agency.
Don't be held back by what you think should be. Think only of what is.
That's actually really good advice.
The gossip, the buzz, the who said what, who does that, yeah, the scattlebug.
Nah, this song is a legit banger. It's a combination of poetry, rapping, talking, various rhythms all within the same rhythm. They knocks this one out the park. Okay, so I know this is the 1800s and things like marriage was done quicker because people had a much shorter life expectancy. But even still, you literally just found her. Also, I like this scene where Ariel finds out that Vanessa is Ursula and gets her voice back, and it looks like Ariel is finally gonna get the kiss, but you see the sunset in the back and it's just a little too late. Anyway, after Ursula takes Ariel back to the bottom of the ocean, Eric swims after them, but the thing is, for Eric to swim that far down with no protective gear, he either died from a lack of oxygen or died from compression. Either way, Eric died in this scene. Furthermore, that far down would be too dark for Eric to see anything, so the fact that he hit Ursula with that rod, pure luck. So basically, Ariel just murdered her own auntie. But honestly, I think this is all on King Triton for being a terrible father. Ariel has 6 older sisters and not one of them she felt she could confide in. Not one of them took the initiative to ask Ariel what's going on, even though it was beyond clear there was something upsetting her. And that is poor upbringing. King Triton raised his kids to not care about each other, and now Ariel is murdering her own auntie. And let's not forget that Triton banished Ursula, his own sister, younger sister at that, for what? Because he made her trouble with the humans. So? Nah, Triton is an egotistical prick. This is all his fault. And now the trident brings Triton back to life? Even though he wasn't the last owner of the trident? Why does he get to come back to life, but Ursula don't? What kind of message is this? Never take accountability for all your screw-ups and you'll get rewarded. Nah, allow that, man. Hold up. Eric went into the sea to swim after Ariel and Ursula shortly after sunset. Eric then gets into the sea battle on the sea surface when Ariel murdered her own auntie. Now we see Eric swimming out of the ocean and the sun has already risen again. So Eric's been in the waters for what? 5 hours? Maybe longer depending on time of year? I mean, I ain't saying that's impossible, even though Eric couldn't swim out of the ocean when his ship got wrecked in a storm, but now all of a sudden he's a champion swimmer, but whatever. Eric is not okay right now. Dude would have extreme exhaustion, dehydration, possibly hypothermia, and maybe even pneumonia, and I'm not sure 1800s medicine is gonna be able to help him. So if Eric doesn't show up in The Little Mermaid Part 2, you know why. So I get that this scene is supposed to be showing King Triton coming to terms with Ariel wanting a different life than he wanted for her, but this really just solidifies how much of an arsehole he is. He didn't talk to Ariel first, he just changed her back to a human without checking if that's what she still wanted. Dude is a control freak, he is not a good half person. This whole movie was Ariel protesting against her feelings and desires being ignored. From her father being too controlling, Ursula blatantly ignoring her disagreements, and literally taking her voice choice away, and now Prince Eric deciding to marry her, at what point does Ariel actually make any actually important decisions? Ariel starts the movie being controlled and hating it, then ends the movie being controlled and loving it. Make sense. Anyway, the movie ends with Eric and Ariel getting married and forming a peaceful union between humans and mermaids. Even Triton and the mer creatures show up to give their approval. And when it's all said and done, the film leaves two questions unanswered. One, Eric and Ariel, does that still count as bestiality? And B, why does Prince Eric never change his clothes? It's been more than 4 days, you're still wearing the exact same clothes, and on your wedding day, you couldn't even make an effort for your wedding day? Ariel left her family, her friends, her entire community, and you couldn't even be bothered to put on a different suit? Mad thing. But that's what I think of The Little Mermaid. What do you think of The Little Mermaid? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.